It's easy to get wrapped into how you think this story's going to end. Like, okay, we have Rachel for maybe another 6 months or another year, or maybe she lives to 5, and I think that's the wrong way to look at it.
Some families want to look at all of this, and some people don't. Some people want to look at it right from the beginning because all those realizations are present. And sometimes those realizations about what isn't going to happen actually come later. So the scaffolding is about being there and listening to kind of where they are in the moment and beginning to help them think about what do they need now that they realize things are not going to be as they thought they were.
The hardest part of being a caregiver for William at the beginning was I was so drowning in grief but trying to avoid it that I was focusing on work, and because work was my getaway. And then work made me take 4 months off, paid time off, and then I had no option but to go home and be part of the daily routine.
It's a really hard thing to juggle. Like, I guess there's a fine line between hope and acceptance. I don't know.
Unlike John, who doesn't really like to talk about the prognosis and his end of life, I want the DNR filled out. I went to the cemetery and picked out a plot. I'm thinking about his funeral in my mind all the time, which sounds so strange, but it's my way of sort of preparing myself for it.
If the diagnosis or the prognosis or whatever is grim, I want to know that. I want to know what I'm dealing with so I can, motor through it and deal with it and hit it head on instead of getting sideswiped.
So it really becomes about good fit. You want the best people with the best medical knowledge for your child, and you want people that you feel comfortable with.
I think it's very important, though, to find a doctor who will take your lead and who will work with you and recognize that you know your child and that none of these decisions are easy.
And that's what I think bothers you most personally, is the uncertainty of everything.
Yes.
And sometimes you just have to be willing to let go, and you do the best you can, and you set up everybody with the best values and let them make the choices and how it unfolds. And, look, if Adelaide's not here in 10 years, which is a distinct possibility, I have no idea what the rest of us are going to be like, and it might, it's good, but I will cross that bridge when we get there, right?
I would say the hardest part of being Talon's mom was having to make difficult decisions for him, knowing that nothing was going to make him have his 5th birthday or get his license or get married. So making any kind of decision about his life was very difficult for me.
I need his life to be good now. And that's, I wanted to make sure he was not in pain. I wanted to make sure that he was living a life that was worth living. Living in a hospital for the next 20 years, hooked up to machines, was not an acceptable life to me.
And they said, you have to make a decision. Are we going to let him go and do comfort care? Or do you want to trach him and put him on a bed? So I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to answer that question because my no from before was no longer on the table. Because losing my son, letting him go, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that. So they were both bad choices.
And I was crying and crying and crying because I said, God, I don't know if we should the right treatment for her. We don't understand all this medicine world and stuff that they're gonna do. But they say, God, we trust you. We know that you have a plan with Christy, and it's gonna be your decision, God. And
it's in your hands.
Probably the hardest part for me, experience-wise with Talon, is that I had to go to work every day to support the family and not see my boy as much, knowing I'm playing my role as a father to support my family, being self-employed and fighting for the work and pushing forward and know you're doing it right in your mind.
And as the complications grew and his care became more in depth, that just continued to create a divide between us. I was living in the hospital a lot of the time with Kai, and Mark was here working. And eventually we ended up living very separate lives.
It just brings everything, at you at once, and you can't dissect it. But you need, if you want your marriage, you need to fight for it.
We go see someone who's been tremendous and has been a great help. And we talk about so many issues that you would think, oh, that's not that big of a deal. Yeah, well, we're going to talk about it. And it helps, and believe it or not, it even helps in the care of your little special needs child. And you wouldn't think, it's not just, marriage therapy, it's life therapy.
We would say to each other, you are my rock. And the only way that you and I will be able to get through this in a positive way is by supporting each other.
We hear from siblings over and over and over again, even though they completely understand that it was not intentional in any way, that they actually felt neglected. And sometimes they felt almost abandoned, or they felt sort of shuttled from person to person.
Well, we're so busy focused on Mallory, I don't want to miss out on what's going on with the other children. And so, we try to do as much as we can with them. It hurts to have to go out and leave her home, because for the longest time we took her everywhere with us. I don't want them to feel like their life, gosh, I missed all my childhood because my parents were focused on Mallory.
We just talked a lot with them, and all the questions that they had, we answered them. And if we couldn't answer them, we would have one of our visiting nurses answer them.
I can't even remember exactly what I said to him, but I was crying so hard. I was trying not to cry. And Jake put his little arm around my back and was just rubbing my lower back. And I told him, I said, Jake, she's sick and she's, not going to live a long life. And he said, I'm trying not to cry, Mom. And I said, it's okay, Jake, you can cry,
And to anticipate, to begin to think about, am I going to be able to go on? What's this going to look like? What's it going to be like without all these medical people in my life?
It was a huge fear. I had no relief from that, from the thoughts of, okay, one day I won't have to live this life anymore. One day I won't have to be in the hospital. I won't have to be carting a wheelchair around. I can go to the grocery store by myself. That scared me, because it was 100% of my identity at that point.
All our care choices that we made throughout his life really came to a point and all met together. And William's last moments were very peaceful. He simply exhaled, and he had all his family in and around him at home. And I think every scenario that I played in my head was much worse than that moment for us.
It didn't really hit me until I actually looked at my wife and said, I want to hold my boy, after he passed away. And she kind of gave me a look, and I said, give me my boy. And when she passed him over, that for me opened the floodgates, and I just released, and I cried, and I just cried, and told him I was very happy and proud of him.
But to try to look at it as I don't know where it's going to go, and you try to plan for that, and we've all tried to plan, it's too overwhelming. But the fact of the matter is you do evolve, you adapt, you actually gain strength, and you don't have to deal with it all in one day.
I think for anyone watching this, you will believe it when it happens to you that you are capable of seeing this through, and you are braver than you can ever imagine.